What is up, Wizards fans? Welcome into another Believe in Wizards podcast. I'm Matt Moderno. Joining me here today, my good buddy Ersin Demir, talking NBA draft stuff. He's an amazing follow. His newsletter is terrific. It's a ton of great information, basically on everybody in this draft at some point, at some level. This man has looked at, talked about, scouted. So great source for information. Ersin, how you doing? And tell people up front here where they can find you and your work.
Hey man, thanks for having me on, man. It's an honor. I think it's year three in a row now,
Yep.
so I'm kind of rooting for the Wizards in the lottery as well on Monday.
I appreciate it. We need all the help we can get.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be the Jazz or the Wizards. Yeah,
Absolutely.
the newsletter is edemir.substack.com. I think I wrote about 200 pieces, 200 plus in 2.5 years. It's crazy, man. But I try to stay consistent, and the focus is on the less coveted guys. So the first and the 18th pick won't be covered that much, but the second round and undrafted free agency, that's where I try to take my chance. So that's
That's
me
smart
doing
because
what I do in a nutshell.
I love that too because how many pieces about Cooper Flag do we need in one draft cycle? We all know he's
Yeah,
really good,
exactly.
but
And that's my thing as well. Try to find these less coveted guys that no one heard about.
yeah, that I think that's perfect. We're going to talk about guys for the Wizards with the 18th pick, but that's not totally unheralded nobodies. But it's not like the no-brainer, Dylan Harper, Cooper Flag guys. So I think we're going to talk about just three guys each and just go through what we like about them and why we think they make sense for the Wizards, or just in that general range, why they should be kind of on the list here. So, Harrison, I'm gonna let you start us off here. Who's your first guy?
Man, what I did try to do in this thesis is okay, what did the Wizards do the last 2 years?
Yep.
What are the type of guys that they bet on?
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things is the Wizards are not trying to win now, so player
Right.
development is a big one. So I think I will go with underclassmen in 100% of the times, unless you have a big opportunity with an older player. But
Sure.
the main thought for me is okay, I'm looking for roster versatility and a bit of role versatility as well.
Smart.
And that's what I would approach it.
Mm-hmm.
The first guy I would choose, and that's saying, okay, you won the number one pick, you didn't pick a guard in the top 10, is Nolan Traore. I think he's perfect for what the Wizards try to do. Nolan is a kind of a buy low option at 18.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, in the one point of time, it was in the preseason, he was a top five pick, Harold the top three pick, and now he declined during the season. And what I like about Nolan Traore is, the ability to lead a team.
Mm-hmm.
That's what the Wizards need. I think Carrington is more of a scorer's guard, more of a creative scorer's guard, dribble penetration guard, rather than someone who can orchestrate an offense. And it's not really an overkill to have Nolan Traore there as well. I think he has some good size. He has improving handles. It's not really tight,
Sure.
and that was one of his weaknesses in the pros because one of the background information is that St. Quentin is they really play as a local team. These college kids go to games by planes, etc. And
Mm-hmm.
this guy, most of the time, they went by bus in France. So let's say they play in the south and over in the north, he go by bus everywhere.
Wow.
So it's kind of a different environment. And playing among pros is if you have a weaker handle, if you are a one-dimensional type of player, it's easier to take you away. And the
Makes sense.
earliest stuff season was that the guys found him out early. So,
Mm-hmm.
bad defensive teams, that's where he played good against. But, it's against teams who did their homework, he struggled. So,
I got you.
I think the guys that play against grown men, it's kind of overused, that term, because now college gets so old, everyone's playing grown men.
Yeah.
But in this situation, he learned how to lead a team
Mm-hmm.
by trial and error. And his team did quite well, actually. The European campaign, they won some games and the league as well. And with Nolan Traore, they continue the French trend. I think the Dawkins is a fan of players from outside Europe.
Good point. They have three guys that speak French already. A fourth guy wouldn't be a bad thing.
Yeah, compared to Masai Ujiri from the Raptors, Masai is great in Africa, and I think Dawkins is trying to unlock some of these European countries. And having a buy low option at 18 for a leading player at guard, I think that's the opportunity, man, with Nolan Traore. I think
I like that.
he has to improve his handles, but that will be better with NBA spacing. Especially it's a pick and roll league, and that's what you're buying the talent with, man. And at the rim, he has to work on getting more of it as a two-handed finisher, more as a as a creative finisher. What I like about Traore is that's why he sticked against pros.
Mhm.
He has some good core strength, man, and his footwork improves. So on his last step, he can, if he can maintain his balance better, he's going to be a great scorer with different penetration. And the Wizards, I don't have the stats in front of me, but I feel they don't we're not a good 3-point shooting team.
No.
But with guys like him, you can create open opportunities, man, because he's gonna draw help defense toward him, and he's one of the best passers in the draft. So at 18, Nolan Traore would be a no-brainer for me, man, for the Wizards.
I dig that. Yeah, I think that an interesting one for the Wizards because, like you mentioned, the Bub Carrington is not really like a super great penetrator. I wouldn't say at this point here, and it's not really Jordan Poole's greatest strength either of like breaking down the defense. If Traore can do that and create wide open threes for some of these other guys that haven't made a ton of threes so far, like maybe it just makes their lives easy enough that the percentages go up. So I'm not mad at it. We got a question here in the chat from Noah. He wants to know about Traore's defense. Can this guy guard anybody yet, or at least does he project out to be a high level, or at least I don't know. Where do you see the defense long term?
Yeah, that was one of the struggles, man, because amongst age group, it really bothered him because he was so good on the offensive end.
Hmm.
But on the defensive end, it's the screen navigation has to be better,
Yep.
and he has to be stronger, and that's one of the issues, man. Because in the half court, these defenders, they would exactly attack him in the pick and roll. Defensively, it's an issue, and for me, it's not a problem because the Wizards are bad, and they are, likely going to stay bad for 1 or 2 seasons more.
And he's got
So
some
that's
time
where
to work
you
on that end without hurting them too much. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's where you try to find a way to not hurt the defensive rating too much with him on the floor. But defensively, to need some work, and especially on the footwork side and on the screen awareness side. But that's what make okay, in my opinion, because on the other end, these NBA staffs they value the professional experience, and he has gotten better throughout the season. But defensively, that's what's really where you're buying qualities with him. So that's the other side of the coin.
Byron Man 12 asks, who do you see as the better point guard prospect? Yegor Demon, Nolan Traore, or Jeremiah Fears?
I think if you look at purely the passing stuff, I think Demon is the best by far.
Yeah,
I think the most offensively creative, with the best handles, is Fierce by a landslide.
100% agree.
But in terms of kind of the role versatility stuff, though Nolan has the size to play off of another guard as well. I think he's the best player among the three because
Wow.
Demon is selective in getting downhill, and he's good downhill. Fierce is he kind of needs the ball to make it happen. And for me, the challenge is how does he play without the ball, and that's what team has to do. But Nolan, he found a niche. He found a way to not to play with 30% usage. So in terms of pro play, in terms of how he's going to play in the NBA, Nolan has the best chances to succeed in a lesser role among the three.
I've watched him the least, so I won't feel educated, but I am higher than consensus on both Demon and Fears. So he would probably finish 3 for me just by virtue of that. The question I
Yeah.
have, I guess, is just like related to his height. I've seen the height listed anywhere from like 6'1" to 6'4". I don't know. Do you have a great sense for how tall he actually is? And do you
Nah, I
think
think the
he'll?
measurement is going to be crucial, man. I
Yeah,
think he's what 6'2" in socks, so what 6'3" in in shoes.
yep,
Yeah, that's that's the other side of the coin, man. Because of some guys get away with it, the
yep,
Bob has the hair to compensate for it. But Fierce is, I think he can measure out 6'4" in socks, 6'5" in shoes. I think he's much taller, but much skinnier.
yeah.
Yeah, and then I think he's a legit 6'8", 6'9", man. There's no
I
question
agreed for
about it.
sure. Yeah, Demon's big. I've seen Fears in person. He's been within 5 feet of me. I'm exactly 6 feet tall. He looked like he was 3 or 4 inches taller than me. So if he's 6'3" and a half, on draft night, I think that'll be big for him. So Traore, that's the thing I kept wondering
Yeah,
about. So I appreciate the insight there. All right, let's head over to the next guy here for first one on my list. This might actually not be realistic come draft night, given the buzz we've heard recently. We started putting this together about a week ago, and even since then, the intel has been that this guy's going up draft boards. But it's Arizona freshman Carter Bryant, 6'8", 3/4, could probably do a little bit of either depending on how he fills out. 7-foot wingspan. The numbers don't look great for Carter Bryant on like counting stats, essentially, he averaged 6.5 points per game, 4 rebounds, made 46% of his field goals, 37% of his threes, and was just kind of content to be in that sort of freshman, fifth, sixth option kind of role here. But the upside for Bryant is really intriguing. I think the shot is like legitimate. I really buy that longer term. And I think he'll just be a really versatile defender. So if he's already just like a guaranteed 3 and D kind of guy, plus some upside, I think he puts the ball on the floor better than he gets credit for. And, a lot of like the mistakes defensively were just like freshman lapses. Like his probably two biggest defensive highlights of the year came against Akron in their first round tournament game. Carter Bryant had these two monster, like weak side blocks, or like one was a rotation that was kind of late, but they were also kind of caused by him getting beat backdoor because he was sleeping on somebody. So it's like the things he's got to clean up are coachable things, and you kind of can't teach the tools that someone like that has. Like not the craziest length with the 7 foot wingspan, give or take. We'll see what the measurements are, but really solid athlete and just uses it pretty well, in my opinion. Like you see real plays at the rim. So I think he's going to try to catch lobs and dunk on people and able to roll, but can also step out, put the ball on the floor, attack closeouts a little bit. He just seems to me to be the kind of guy that fits into that Will Dawkins archetype. Like, can he be kind of like a Bilal Coulibaly Jr. type with already a more projectable jump shot? Like, that's what you're hoping for. So if he's there on 18 at this point in the draft, based on what we're hearing, I would be shocked. But maybe you can package a couple things to get up to the tail end of the lottery, and hopefully he'll be available for you there. So, Ersin, what do you think about Carter Bryant?
Yeah, I'm a big fan, man. The crazy part is, we haven't had basketball in over a month now.
Yep,
That's the time where he had the biggest rise.
that's true.
But
Yep.
I think the process makes a lot of sense, man. McDonald's All-American, and he
Hmm.
embraced taking on a smaller role at Arizona.
Yep.
And the build is NBA ready. The body is NBA ready. It's crazy, man. With his 6'8", I think he is what type of guy he can still grow. If you look at his face,
Yeah, I
he
think so
kind of
too.
looks like a kid,
Yep.
even though he's what 6'8",
Hmm.
220. And what I like about him most is, how adaptive he was at Arizona, embracing that smaller role. He he looked like the ultimate guy for me to to be creative out of closeouts
Hmm.
and be that versatile defender, man. You mentioned the help side defense. I think that's the type of stuff that you have to have on a team.
Yep.
But the other side of it is he has a lot of long-term potential, and you have to compensate for that and give him a leash to develop more.
Yeah,
So
agreed.
at Washington, it would be great for him. And he's not the type of guy that will, be great in year one. I think he
Hmm.
still has to improve his game, improve, the rotational stuff. And, the best way is to do it on a rebuilding team. So I would
Oh,
like him, man. I think for Carter Bryant, if I have some preferences, I would choose him for example, the Jazz. Same thing. They need size, they need versatility, but for the Wizards, it's perfect, man. If you have a guy like that complementing the stars,
yep.
Koulibaly, and then I'm not sure what direction Alex Sarr is going to be in terms of his role, but you don't have another mouth to feed because he can
Mhm.
compensate for the rest. So I like that one, man.
I think just him not being a ball stopper is big too. I actually would have liked if he were a little more aggressive, and that's a thing I do worry about with some of the guys the Wizards have picked, that they are a little more deferential, but he fit into a role. He's not going to rock the boat, and you're going to like will be able to naturally kind of let him grow into more responsibilities over time. So I'm looking forward to it. Again, the things that he's not good at right now, I think are things that are all going to be things that fill out over time. Like not crazy physical of a player right now, given the tools he already has, but that's something that the guys get more comfortable doing over time. And honestly, sometimes college basketball is more physical than NBA basketball anyway. But
Yeah.
there are definitely moments when you saw it, like in the tournament, he guarded Nate Biddle from Oregon, and he was a huge human being. And you're like, oh god, like he's holding up on a center who's trying to like back him down from the 3 point line. But then he also guarded Jackson Selstad, their point guard, like 5 minutes later. So just really somebody that can kind of do those sorts of things strikes me as a guy they're really going to look for. Uh, Erson, let's keep it rolling here. Who do you have at number 2 on your list?
Yeah, it's not really that something that I was thinking about putting all the French kids at Washington, but this one's too good to pass up, man.
Okay.
Maxime Raynaud from Stanford
At 18. That's
at
high for
18,
most
yeah, man.
people. Okay.
Because
I do like him, by the way, but I just want to throw that out. Like it's a little on the the high end of his projected
I'm a
range so
big
far?
fan, man. I'm a big
Okay.
fan because if
So
you
far.
look at everything what the NBA tries to do today,
Mhm.
he has it, man. He's a legit 7-footer with
He's a big
skill,
boy. Yeah.
with handles, with the ability to create plays.
Mhm.
And what I saw from Wizard stuff is they want to play 4 out and 5 out type of style.
Yeah.
And with him, you have such a big opportunity to have more skill and more ball handlers on the perimeter.
Mhm.
And what I like about Maxime Raynaud is, the stuff that the 5 years ago he would be called a unicorn because skilled 7-footers who
Sure.
can dribble penetrate their way, good 3-point shooters,
Mhm.
and that's what I think I would do if I were Dawkins.
I
Add
like that.
more skill and let's see where it brings him, man. Because Maxime Raynaud he grew into if Cooper Flag wasn't there, he was ACC Player of the Year and he contributed to winning basketball. They weren't a good team, but thanks to him, they had kind of a if they played in the SEC or something, they would be in the tournament or
Yeah.
something because that conference sucks and they didn't have good wins, so they had no chance to get in. And what for Maxime Reynaud is the size, the skill, and the ability to scale his roll up and down. It makes it the perfect Batman to compensate and to add to the strengths that Sar brings. Another 7-footer, more of a defender, more of that interior force.
Mhm.
And with Reynaud, the worrying part is he's not really a good defender, right? And he can switch. He slides his feet a little bit, but he doesn't really have that good defensive footwork and the lateral quickness to match up against the smaller explosive guards, for example, in the NBA.
I
But
think he's
that's yeah,
definitely a drop coverage big man. I think, but a good one. I think he'll be fine at that because he has real height and you know.
yeah, and the skill, man. I think that's the most vital stuff that these NBA scouts are trying to find skill.
Mhm.
And if I look purely at what the league seeks, I don't understand why this guy is not higher in cover. I think the reason is he's a senior and he didn't have, a good couple of years at the beginning. So it was
Good
really
start.
he got better every year. So that says something about his will to get better as well. And maybe it's kind of a way to compensate for that one ball that they missed from Ticket Wembanyama. I'm not trying to, cause more pain with the Wizards fans.
Yeah, that's a
This
tough
guy
one
is
to
going to
fill.
be Alma's best friend as well, so maybe it softened the pain a little bit because yeah, you missed that guy by one ball, but you get his best friend a couple of years later. So.
Not the worst consolation prize. You mentioned this. He's crazy productive this year. 20
Yeah,
points, over 10 rebounds per game. Blocked a little under a shot and a half. Almost 2 assists per game. Like really upticked the 3-point volume this year. Only made about 35%, but on 5.5 attempts as a 7-footer. Shot about 77%. The last 2 years from the free throw line. The touch is real. This is another guy I got to see in person this year at Stanford, which is an interesting venue to go see a game if anybody ever gets the chance. But he was as big as advertised. He's definitely a legitimate 7-footer. And the thing that was kind of most striking was just talking to him post game for a few minutes in the press conference. Like, was just a very thoughtful person and just like got into some technical detail and like his post game breakdown, which thought was interesting. Just hear him talk about how they're thinking game. And it was a game they blew out Utah Valley, who was a pretty good team. So yeah, I like Renault more than most. And hey, just Stephen Fine said in the chat, Maxime Raynaud is very good at basketball. I think that is an underrated
yeah,
skill sometime is just taking guys that are really good and really productive. He'll be 22 years old on draft night. So I think you're right. That's the reason he'll drop. But yeah, I wouldn't be mad at it. You could probably even trade back from 18 and get a guy like this late first round, or maybe even trade up from their pick at 40 and still try to catch him on the flip side here too. So he's definitely somebody I would have on my board. So I like the shout out. All right, next guy here. Let's transition. Second guy on my list, Rasheer Fleming from St. Joe's, 6'9", 7'4" ish wingspan based on past measurements. Averaged 15 points per game this year, about 9 rebounds, 1.3 assists, 1.5 steals, 1.5 blocks. Made 40% of his threes, which is something he's really improved at. Will be 21 years old on draft night. Just like a bouncy vertical guy, I think. Plays really hard, which I like. I think that'll fit in with this Wizards core. And he's versatile enough, I think, that you can play him around some of the other pieces. Like he rebounds pretty well for his position. So if you can get a stretch four, I think Alex Sarb played his best basketball as a 5 this year. So someone like Fleming that can take a little of the rebounding, responsibility off of his plate, but also step out and hit some threes and allow them to play five out. I don't know what his ceiling is long term. I think he's probably like a low end starter. Like he's not going to be your number one, two, or three option, but can he just be like a really solid member of the rotation? Is he Jared Vanderbilt plus like a 40% 3-point shooter? Like that to me is a valuable guy in that 18 range. He does sort of disappear for stretches sometimes, which is why I've kind of softened on him a little bit. I had him like just outside the lottery for most of the year. Same thing, got to see him in person a couple times in the A10 tournament, and he just coasted. He also, in the second one of those games, didn't shoot particularly well, but just was everywhere attacking the boards, trying to get a lot of rebounds, and just like impose himself on the game by running the floor really hard. So I think the effort is a thing I like from an athletic guy. He's gotten better every year. Can he put the ball on the floor at this point in his career? Probably not a ton, but that's something you can try to develop. And if you do, that's a little bit of icing on the cake. So, Ersin, where are you at with Rasheer Fleming?
Yeah, I'm a big fan, man. That guy got better every year, and
Yeah.
it's gotten a lot better every year.
Yep.
And the role that I see for him is that's one of the scarcer roles in the NBA, so that raises his value, especially
Hmm.
despite him being upperclassman. I think that's why he's mostly being coveted as a late lottery guy.
Yep.
Is the combination of strength, skill, and the physical tools. At what 6'9", I think his wingspan is gonna measure out like crazy, man, like
Yeah, I think
7'3" or
7'4", 7'5", something like that. He's a long dude.
yeah, man. The length and the processing of the game is very good. I think he can effectively play the passing lanes, but switch and play as a smaller five as well.
Hmm.
The teams love to put more shooting on the floor, and then the
Sure.
five position is basically by default. Yeah, he can be a smaller five. That's the label that they always put on the guy. But this guy has the length and the strength to really switch
Hmm.
against vertical lob threat, but also against floor stretchers, man. And what I like about him the most is the footwork defensive.
Yeah,
He's
same.
so patient. And if you put him in the pick and roll, he can play against the ball handler, and he has some decent feel for how to, attack screens with his
Yeah.
screen awareness, tag players because he's much stronger. And if he plays drop, he has the lateral quickness to really make something happen against something with the jump stop shooting, step back shooting. His length helps him a lot, man, and
Yeah, he does.
processing of the game defensively got him much better. And the Wizards are not really a good defensive team, so that's the route that they might choose, man. So I like him a lot.
They had two small guards that just were sort of indifferent to defense at
Yeah.
different points in the year for St. Joe's, and he cleaned up a lot of mistakes for them. So I think that's another thing that makes sense here. And another guy that's not going to stop the ball, not like a prolific passer, but assist and a half per game isn't bad for a forward that didn't have a particularly high usage. So he's not afraid to move the ball, make the right plays. And this is a guy that's not going to like lose his mind if he's not the
Yeah.
top option or something. So I think he'll fit in well with what they're trying to do. And I heard a name mentioned the other day from a scout. His comp for him was like a Nas Reed kind of player, and that's a kind of guy I would love to get on this Wizards. Like you said, he could be maybe a five in some situations, maybe even guard all the way up to the three. So that versatility, I think, really fits in with where Will Dawkins and company want to go. All right, let's keep this rolling. Ersin, what do you got number 3 on your list here?
I had several guys, man, but I tried to go a different route.
I like
I
it.
tried to go the route of, dribble penetration
Okay.
and great touch at the rim. These
Mm,
type of players. I think the shooting is, yeah, it's important, but
sure.
if you draft a shooter, you really have to know what you're drafting. And honestly, if I look at what this player should do at 18,
Hmm.
it's more so play in a complementary role, more so play as a complementary two.
I like that.
I like Jace Richardson, man, for
Okay.
the Wizards. I think he's a perfect pick for the Wizards, actually, because the things that I like the most about him is I try to stay away from the efficiency stuff because maybe I'm not really a numbers guy. I don't really like to use numbers to project 10 seasons. If a
Yeah.
guy plays one
It's tough with a
season,
freshman too, because he could
yeah,
really just like change a few little things and it and totally shifts that narrative.
yeah, exactly. It's all contact based. The Michigan State, did they really have a star? Yeah, he became it by default,
Right.
but he's so skilled and so good. What I like about him is how easily he gets downhill, man.
Mhm.
This is not a player comparison by any means. So it's just a style. I think he is crafty like Doncic, man.
Mm.
He's not really a good athlete, but the handles and the creativity and the way he uses, body positioning with fakes, head fakes, with, for example, jump stops, and then make a pass out of these or score for himself. It's so good, man. And the core strength is the best among the young guards in this draft. He's out of imbalance every time. It's crazy. It helped that he had good athletes around him at Michigan State, but to touch it around the rim, yeah, man. If people told me he would finish 80% of his rim attempts, I would believe it, man, because he's really looks so natural. I think he's more of an old school scorer in a modern frame, in a
Mhm.
modern style, because of how well he masters the fundamentals. I think that's the advantage of these guys with pro fathers.
Yeah,
They
they
tend to
just
learn the game the right way.
they really do.
So
Yeah.
I like him a lot, man, because he's not going to be a star for Washington Wizards.
Sure.
He might be a fringe starter in the next few years, but having a guy like him off the bench with his offensive creativity, with his slashing, his way to make plays out of closeouts, his creativity as a passer, he's not a full-time playmaker. And
Mhm.
defensively, that's why I like him a lot. Is he's strong enough to defend. It's not really that he has to rely on team defense. He's strong enough to defend, especially against ones and twos. That would be my main task. And adding strength to his frame is not an issue. I think he's going to get much stronger. He's going to be one of these power guards. Despite not having the size or the really athleticism for it, but he has the footwork, man. I like what I do when evaluating talent. Always focusing on the footwork because the footwork can really compensate for so much. And these guys have to play against all the players instead of college. And it's going to be maybe as physical, but the level of skill is difference between day and night. And that's why most of these guys can play because they are getting ran out of the floor because, they lose it on skill, they lose on footwork, they lose on ankles. But that's not the type of thing. You really buy the IQ, the angle creation and the angle recognition, man.
Yeah.
And he can play in a small role. I like him a lot, but not only because of the numbers, but because of sometimes it's easy as if you look at a guy for 10 minutes, damn it, that guy can play, no doubt.
I appreciate this as a guy that's been a winner. He played with the Boozers in high school. They won pretty much everything they could. And then he gets to Michigan State. Nobody really expected a lot from them going into the season, and they definitely overachieved. And he didn't really rock the boat at all. He only started 15 of 36 games as the son of a fringe all-star level player and just was low maintenance. And I think that's a really great thing as well. That would fit into sort of the character vibes this front office is going for. Average 12 points, three rebounds, about 2 assists. Kind of reminds me of Bub a little bit in that sense of just gonna do a little bit of everything. Not a crazy athlete. I think he'll score at a pretty high level. Not like really a point guard though. Like a pure point guard kind of guy, but shot 41% from three this year on 3 attempts, but also was an 84% free throw shooter. So I think this guy's got real touch. I would have liked to see him drive right a little bit more. That was my one thing I sort of noticed, in a couple games watching him play, especially against Maryland. Like he just only seemed to drive left, which is something that'll come over time and they'll work on in the lab and do some skill development on. But yeah, he did get downhill pretty well for a guy that's not a crazy athlete. And I don't know if you're him and you see what your dad did in some all-star games and things like that or dunk contests.
Yeah, not the athlete
I would have
either.
been bummed about being 3 inches shorter than him and not nearly the same kind of athlete. So he's just not really what you'd expect from Jason Richardson's son. But Jace, I think, is a really interesting player, and I'm a little lower on him than you are. But I think this is definitely the range he's going to go, and he could make some sense for this Washington team. Is another guy who does seem to get into the paint pretty well. So that would be something I
Yeah,
think
that's
this
the main
team
buy.
definitely needs. Question here in the chat again from Noah. Would you take Jace if the Wizards took another guard with the first pick? Like if they went Harper, Edgecombe, or Trey Johnson, would you still consider a Jace Richardson at 18?
Mm, It's yes and no. The no part is you have to have some experience eventually,
Mhm.
and too many of these young guards is it might be a risk. And the yes is the Wizards are developing and they are developing, roles and long-term potential. So that's why I would understand if you put more younger pro players on the floor. But Jace is not really projected in to be a starter. It's more so to be a rotational piece at 18, and that's great value.
Yep.
His role shouldn't be, he shouldn't have a big role because he thrives in, as a complementary guard. That's what made him great at Michigan State. And
Hmm.
compared to last year's, they never made threes when they had to.
Right.
But with him, they gave a little bit more of, confidence that they can, make defenders pay or make defense pay for letting them open.
Hmm.
So you're buying a mature player who understands the role and the craft and IQ. That's the main buy. So I would do it. I would do it, but he won't be the starter because there's Dylan Harper and kind of stays Bob. So that's not really something he should compete for.
I'm a big believer in like best player available in terms of like if this guy is clearly the top dude on your board, then you just take him and you figure out
Yeah,
all the rest of it. But I also do believe like you have to find minutes for these guys to develop. Like they're never going to turn into the best player available if you can't get them on the court. So it's sort of a balance, right? Like if you take too many young guards and none of them play, they're not all going to develop, and you're almost like shooting yourself in the foot here a little
yeah,
bit. So
exactly. So
they got
I would
to.
hope that they would move Poole eventually. Let's say you have good opportunity, middle of the season, you trade him for more
Yeah.
assets or something.
They'd have to find room somewhere, and even Jace is probably a guy that isn't going to be super thrilled about. I don't mean maybe not playing a ton of G League minutes though. Like I think
Yeah,
AJ Johnson, you can keep starting the year in the G League and transition him over to the big club later in the year as he continues to develop his skill set and stuff like that too. But Jace is a guy I think you would want to get minutes for right away, and you could maybe scale him up as you move some of those veteran guys, like you said at the deadline here. Byron Man 12 asked about Trey Johnson. Trey's going to be on the list of guys we talk about for that first pick in the draft, so we'll do him in a future episode for you. This one we're starting a little bit lower in the draft here, so let's keep rolling here with the next guy. I've got going bigger for this one, and we're going Georgetown freshman center Thomas Sorber. This is a guy I loved from day one. I got to be there for their media day opening practice, and he just moved different than everybody else on the court right away. You could just feel like, oh, this is an NBA guy from the way he was running the floor, just out there with other dudes that were, relatively competitive. They were a more athletic team this year, and he still just sort of stood out. I think he's got really good touch around the rim for a younger guy already. He runs the floor hard. He's got some go-to post moves, which is cool to see. I think he'd just be a good compliment for Alex Sarr. Like, like I said, Sarr is probably best as a five, especially closing games, but Sorber could come in and eat up a lot of those minutes next to Sarr. I also think he moves his feet just well enough to be able to not just be a drop coverage big only. I mean, he's probably not going to be switching on to point guards, and you're going to feel comfortable with that every time. But I think he moves his feet enough that you could put those guys out there together and not get killed for it. Runs the floor really hard, good rim runner already, and just had like good defensive instincts, had some steals. And I think that's like part of his just ability to see the game and feel the game. I thought he was like a really underrated passer. A lot of what they did offensively relied on him being able to move the ball. If somebody doubled him, he could keep the ball moving to the right people. Not I think he's got touch, but he's not a shooter at this point. So that's really a question if you think he'll extend that range out further longer term here. But I think he's going to measure really well from a wingspan perspective. And again, just a freshman in the Big East that averaged 14 and a half points, 8.5 rebounds, 2.5 assists. So like I said, is really good for a freshman big. 2 blocks, 1.5 steals. So everybody loves those stocks numbers, and have 3.5 of them as a center, I think is pretty good. Made 53% of his field goals, only 16% of his threes, but on almost no volume, and was a low 70s free throw shooter. Like a decent touch. I just like him. He's a likable dude. He's like a nice kid, but like got a little mean streak to him out on the court. And I think that's like the right blend of guy they're looking for. A dude that will kill you on the court, but is going to be a really good teammate, good locker room guy off the court. So that's my take on Thomas Sorber. Ersin, what do you think about Sorber as a prospect for the Wizards at 18?
that the beginning of the season, I totally missed the boat on Sorber.
Oh,
They had the guy from New Zealand, Julius
oh,
Halaiponua.
yep.
I was all in on him.
Maybe
You
even
know,
this year might be the year for
yeah, this
Halford.
man he because not to talk about Halaiponua, but I was only focused on him, man. I didn't
Sure.
even know about Sorber.
Hmm.
Then I was like, see, this guy is not getting minutes. Why? Okay, Thomas Sorber, freshman. Who the hell is that? And then you saw it, man. I think the best thing about Sorber is the natural strength, man. If you look at his face, he's just a kid. If you look purely at
Oh
his
yeah, he
face, you
looks like a
won't believe
baby.
he's 18 years old,
Yeah,
for example, because he really looks like a little kid. But 250 pounds, I think it's a legit 250 pounds,
sure.
really strong, and with great footwork, man, as a scorer.
Yep.
That's what I like about him. He knew how to duck in the paint,
Hmm.
how to create out of post, scoring over
Seals
both
guys really well,
shoulders.
which is like a fring freshman don't do particularly
Yeah, man.
well.
That was the crazy part because and in the Big East is serious. I think it's a big man's league actually, the
Yeah.
Big East. And Georgetown was a center school, so that's something that will make the Georgetown fans happy, of course, that they finally found a way to get one of these elite centers again potentially.
Hmm.
And Sorber is, yeah, man. It's just the skill level and then the interior force. You're buying interior defense with him.
Yeah.
He shouldn't really be closing out much onto the perimeter, although that should be a part of his role. But his main buy is the strength at 18.
Hmm.
And he can be a monster in the NBA if everything clicks. But the ankle injuries and sadness is always a risk.
Sure.
So I think
Yeah.
he
Yeah.
will lose some draft stock because of that. That's very unfortunate. Of course, teams are trying to buy in the medical stuff, and we don't know that. I think no one knows that because it's all privacy, etc. But the ankles are always a risk with big men, so
Yeah.
it would
Definitely
be a
something you
good
got to look
buy
at.
low situation.
Yeah, I like that too. Just if this is a team that wants to push the pace and run hard as a center, he's going to do that, but also be able to guard bigger dudes. And you just need somebody to eat up some of those minutes next to Sar. I don't think he'll measure out super tall. Like he's not going to be maybe more than like just under a shade under 6'10 ish. But again, huge wingspan. I think is pretty likely. The standing reach is going to be big. So I think he'll more than make up for it. So I'm a big Sorber guy, and honestly, nice to have a couple local guys here, and haven't had a
That's what Washington does, right? Bob is always local.
that's true. That's our one. Be nice to have a guy that played in DC. I think Sorber's from New Jersey originally here, but I don't think we've had a Georgetown center on the roster since my guy Jahadi White. So it'd be nice to get a little Georgetown footprint here again. Ersin, that's our six guys so far. Any other guys you had on your list? I know you mentioned a couple names in consideration here, but maybe just rapid fire a couple other ones off for us here as we wrap up.
It's more so roles that you're buying
Okay.
and athleticism and physical tools to develop in the long run. It really is not really planned, man. But this is
Mhm.
another French guy, Joan Beringer.
Okay. So I've watched
I've
none of
wrote
him,
about
so I'm really excited to hear about this from you.
yeah, this guy is absurd, man, because he plays in Slovenia.
Mhm.
And 2 years ago, someone told me about him. Hey, this guy, you have to check him out in France. He's gonna be crazy. He's gonna play at the pros and he's gonna be good in the year. Let's see what happens. And then this year at Cedevita, he was projected to play a bigger role. I
Mhm.
wrote about him very early in the cycle. I think
Yep.
it was just when the season started. And what I saw is this guy can shoot free throws for nothing, so under 50%, and the touch is horrible. And the stuff is that you buy a vertical lob threat, this pick and roll, pick and dive,
Mhm.
this off ball screener and then dive. And then basically it's Mitchell Robinson, but much younger.
Okay.
He was always ignored
Mm.
in terms of when he goes to the paint in the NBA because in Europe they know how to play off
Sure.
of that. And for Johan Berger to succeed and that's where it will help Bob Carrington a lot, is this guy is such a natural screener. Insane hips, man. Insane footwork for his age. And the physical tools is he's really, those galopes. I don't know if that's the correct English, but if you look at this, how he moves on the
Mhm.
floor, that's where this guy's an NBA player, and he
I
can
like that.
have 5 missed field goals, 0 points, 3 rebounds, 5 turnovers. You don't care because natural tools are so good, man.
That's
And
awesome.
this is the type of guy that Givoni guesses for some
Yeah.
reason. The
Always. Yeah.
lottery, etc. I was like, damn, man, I know. I had Behringer for 2026 when I did
Okay.
my stuff on him because the free throw touch is horrible. It's really, if you look at it, look at that. This guy is,
I don't need
I would
any more
hack him
guys that can't shoot,
every
man.
time. I
I'm
would
out
hack
on
him
that.
every time. You can't
Yeah.
close games,
Okay.
but the physical tools are insane, insane.
Mhm.
That it's really, if he goes next year, I think he's going to be a lottery pick. To put it
Wow.
like that.
Okay.
But yeah, Givoni is the man of the insights, and he has him what around 15, 20. It's like okay, these
Mm.
NBA teams they are all already on him, so no chance. So to develop guards, that's the type of vertical lob threat that I would put on the floor.
Yeah, and they
Actually,
could
I
use some
hope
of
that he
that.
goes to Atlanta for Trey, but
Yeah, that'd be good too.
the Wizards, they recognize talent, man. That's what Dawkins does very well, and he has an idea. He's not really, you know, they're not really rolling the dice. Let me pick this guy and not really compensate or give him leash to develop, give him the
Hmm.
minutes to develop. He
Agreed.
does that very well. So I think if I were the Washington Wizards with 18, and you go, okay, they were gonna swing for the fence a little bit. This is the
Hmm.
type of guy I would go for a 5.
Okay, I dig that. Uh, got a request here for a little breakdown on Noa Essengue, if you don't mind, too. It's another guy I've watched very little international tape so far this year, so if you could do a quick breakdown of him, I'd appreciate that too.
The crazy part is, okay, you have a clean blueprint. What do you want to do? I think that's Noah in a nutshell.
Okay.
Noah was never the star when he grew up. He always played in a complementary role, but he finds ways to make himself, contribute to winning.
Hmm.
And you have this in every draft class. These, big forwards, big wing type of players who fit in that mold. And Essenga is not a good shooter yet. If he shot 40%, I would say the same thing. Because if you look at the jumper, it's not good. The shot process is not really good. It needs to adjust. But he's skilled, man. And he's really, strong for his age.
Hmm.
He has a little bit of a thin frame, but this is the type of player that can easily gain 20 or 30 pounds in 1 or 2 seasons of muscle, and then it really didn't really hurt him. He can be a 4, he can be a 3, whatever you want. But as right now, it's a long term type of decision to put him like that.
Okay.
And he's a great athlete. He's creative out of pick and rolls. I like his handles actually for his size.
Hmm.
He's not tight, and he can dribble out of pressure, out of blitzes or hard edges or something. But that's not his role.
Yeah.
But if he makes plays out of closeouts, he makes the right decision. Man. He's really good at using fakes with his feet, reverse pivots, and then has good burst and finds ways to get downhill. And he's aggressive and he's tough. And that's not really something that you see with many French players, but he's really tough, man. He really embraces physicality, and that's why he plays against much older players. And he's trying to dunk everything home. That's what I like about him. Man.
I
He
do
has that
like that.
attitude.
We could use some of that in the front court here too,
Yeah.
as a guy next
He
to
has that
Sar.
FU attitude that you seek in, what makes NBA stars really stars because they don't take care. And he
Absolutely.
has so much potential, man. But it's really you really roll the dice with him. You really have to have an idea. My favorite landing spot for him is the Raptors actually because they have so
They
many
love
months
that.
to beat and they
Yeah.
can bet on a complementary type of guy that they can develop
Hmm.
into multiple ways, just like OJ Anunoby, for example.
Sure.
They developed him as well. And development is the main thing with him. So if he goes to a team like the Warriors or something, yeah, man, no chance. I think he's not one. Maybe the Warriors not the best example, but Dallas or something, there's no chance that they will develop him the same like rebuilding teams do, like
Right.
the Wizards
Yeah. That makes
or
sense.
the Raptors in this case.
Uh, all right, Erson. Last guy for you here. Yeah, anyone else you got on the list here that we haven't talked about yet?
No, honestly, I think we touched on most of the guys for the
Okay.
Wizards.
Cool.
My main idea is, and that's really not really to give the easy answer, but the Wizards, what I saw is they draft roles. And they want role versatility and they want guys who can play in multiple roles.
Yeah,
I think
that's
that's
huge.
the direction they will go in during the draft. They will go with an underclassman unless they have really elite skill sets, just
Sure.
like the guys that you mentioned, with me, Bruno, and you with Rasheer Fleming.
Hmm.
I would be shocked if they draft a guy like if they draft Yegor Demit, to put it like that. I would be shocked if they draft him
Okay.
because it's really one dimensional, the passing. The rest is
Yeah, he's a big
it's
passer, but
really
I,
uncertain what's gonna happen.
sure. Yeah, you have to really buy the shooting, I think, which
Yeah,
I do, but it's still a question mark. Like it's by no means like a lock kind of thing. I just
I
saw
think they
last.
will stay away from guys like that. But role versatility,
Mhm.
that's the direction I will go in.
I've got a request for a little Will Riley breakdown here in the chat as well. For me, Will is a guy I would have loved to see go back to school for one more year. I think he could have blown up next year. It was just really kind of up and down for him. Uh, yeah, I'm not as big a Will Riley guy as some people. I think there's definitely some talent there, but was just a little too streaky, for my liking. And I'm usually the take all wings kind of guy. I'm not as sold on the shooting overall here as you would like to be. was really productive, for a first year guy. So I'll give him some credit there. But 12 and a half points per game, 4 rebounds, 2 assists, which is all solid. But 43% from the field, 32.5% from the 3-point line, low 70s from the free throw line. So I think he was good in transition. He benefited early from some of the looks that Gasparis Yakachonis set up for him. Benefited from the spacing from Tomislav Ivicic. So he was able to get to the rim and some of those things. But uh, he would have been a guy that I think could use more seasoning. And it's just not my favorite guy for the Wizards, in this 18 range. Now, if he's still there at 40 or something like that, I would definitely take a shot on it at that point. But 18 is a little too high for me personally.
Nah, the same thing for me, man. I think the going back to school and working on getting stronger would be the main investment I would do. I think
Yeah.
he is skilled. He's a legit ball handler at what
Ball
6'8". I think
handling's
he's
good
gonna
for
measure
his
six
size.
eight,
Yeah.
6'9". So that's
Yep.
what all these NBA teams love, right? But
Yep.
I think was kind of overrated before the season.
Mm.
And at Illinois, he really found a skill set as a scorer, but that's where it ended, man.
Yeah.
Defensively, he didn't really
Wasn't great.
convince me. And Illinois was far from good defensive team, so that's not really helping me either. But the lack of strength and the lack of, giving any confidence that he can keep balance against stronger players, it's not really a decision I would make. I would go back to school and working on getting stronger
Yep.
and continue that skill set and return. There was no issue with that.
Yeah.
But
If
I
he
think he's
knocks down
getting a lot
some
of
more,
buzz, man, because why would you declare if you don't get buzz, right? With NAL, so
he's going to
someone's gonna
come
buy
out.
the skill.
Yeah, he's going to come out. Someone will take him in the first round and take a shot on it. But I agree with you. Like, I think this is somebody that if he made a few more shots, played a little more D next year as he got stronger, could have been a fringe lottery kind of guy as
Yeah.
opposed to maybe somewhere in the 20s right now, I think is what he's kind of generally projected at. Uh, Ersin, thank you for doing this. Everybody listening, and thanks for all the engagement from the chat. Hit that like button for us on YouTube. We really, really do appreciate that. Blow this thing up. But yeah, Ersin, you're always the best, man. Thank you for making time for doing this. I know it's late at night there for you, so I appreciate all the time you always give us here and the great insight, especially on a couple guys I really haven't seen. So this was super helpful for me. And again, just plug the Substack one more time here because it really is like the best resource for a lot of these deep cut guys too.
Hey, thanks, man. It's been year 3, and I want to shout out you as well, man, because
Thanks.
I said it earlier to you. What I like about your podcast is you combine the draft and league coverage so good, man. I think
Thank
that's
you.
what made you special in this NBA space.
Appreciate
And
that.
more people should subscribe, and I think more people will subscribe once the Wizards get better.
I hope so.
Because right
Fingers
now
are
it's not
crossed.
really fun to follow the Wizards, man. Although it is, if you like player development, it's fun. But if you like winning, yeah, man, I think Washington is not really the best place for that. But
Someday.
shout out to you
Yeah.
how you position the podcast. We know with the
Thank you.
DMV hoops, focusing on the smaller college stuff. I like it, man. Really, I like it a lot. And people should really take notice on how much you do in basketball space. Instead of covering your team, you cover the draft. Yeah, man, I
You're
appreciate
too kind,
Washington
my
fans
friend.
that I talked to a few of them, and then
Mhm.
the Substack goes really well for me actually because I try to keep it consistent, and
Yep.
I recognize that more people they want to know about these unknown guys, so it's not really that no one cares anymore.
Yeah.
People start to take notice and start caring, and then if you, yeah, man, I think I put too much content out there, so that I lose a lot of subscribers. And when I ask people, they always say the same thing. So that's something that I know too good, that I know. But if you're okay with 3 or 4 times a week,
No,
you know,
it's
three
good
is
to have
always
those reminders
the
for people
minimum.
that aren't gonna hit it refresh frequently. I have it
Yeah,
bookmarked, so it's the first thing I go to. If someone mentions somebody I'm not
thanks.
familiar with, I always go, all right, let's see what Erison thinks about him because I know he's looked at him at the very least. So you're my starting point for anybody when I'm not familiar with them, which is great.
That means a lot to me, man, because that's basically this because what I try to do. But the
Love it.
Substack is, my handle is EDEMIRMBA.substack.com. Because I want to. I want to put out the information, because most of the articles are always open. So
Mhm.
if you want to know more about the less coveted guys, this is your place. And I kind of spam people with that. So in draft
Good.
season is good, but in November no one cares. So I know I shoot myself in the foot with that, but yeah, that's just always.
You're
It's a
serving the
labor of
market, my
love, man.
friend.
You don't really do these things to earn money or something, unless you're being hired by the league, of course. That's the dream, but it's an hobby now. So if something happens 5 years, I'm grateful. If it never happens, I'm grateful as well because I love hoops.
As teams are building out their scouting departments, I would be absolutely giving you a call, but I'll
Thanks,
put in a
man.
good word
Because
if I'm
I'm
ever
kind
in
of
the front
tripping a
office
little
somewhere.
bit because this season some NBA front office personnel people even subscribe. So that's really an
That's
eye
huge.
opener for me as well. That I'm at least in a good direction.
Yep,
But
it's
yeah,
amazing.
man, because at the end of the day, it's a labor of love. If you don't love basketball, you're not really gonna, hold that much for a couple of years. You have to really love the game, and that's what I do. And that's why I try to, put in the scouting reports. No agendas, nothing. It's just how I watch the game.
I
I
love it.
try to focus on less common guys because I don't care about
It's
Cooper
more
Flag,
fun.
honestly. Because
Yeah.
everything's been said about that guy. I don't want to
Yep.
be the 10th guy that says Cooper Flag is really good. Okay,
Yeah.
yeah.
Wow.
Mr.
What a
Obvious. Captain
bombshell.
Obvious. Yeah.
Yep. No, I appreciate it. It's a service, and I think these guys that are less heralded appreciate that too because they
Yeah.
getting their name out there, and I do know teams look at things like this, so I think that's huge, and I'm glad to hear all your success, my friend. So thank you for doing this, everybody. Thanks for listening. Go check Ersin out on both Twitter and Substack, and let us know if there are other guys you want to talk about. I will happily bug him to come back on here anytime. We got some guys you want us to check out. Maybe we'll do the 40th pick next time
Yeah, man.
and do even more deep cuts.
Yeah, thanks, man, for having me on again, man. It's an honor. And shout out
Appreciate
to
you.
Wizards Nation. So fingers crossed for Monday, man. Let's get the number one pick.
That's right. We're due. All right, everybody, you know the drill. Rate, review, subscribe, like this if you're watching on YouTube. As always, we will catch y'all next time with hopefully a number one overall pick in our back pocket to talk about. All right. Peace, y'all.